Right, that's the rear section of floor hacked out, which has revealed some more horrors. It's not entirely unexpected, but this is pretty rotten down here, and through there you can see some rot, which is that bit of nastiness just there. So that's gonna have to be given some attention next. That's next area of attention before we go any further. So it continues. Right, after giving this some thought, it's going to be a case of having to go to making this ourselves. These are available to buy new, but only for Mark II Escorts, and they're different. Mark 1, or mine at least anyway, goes straight down there, and that's all flush. So the gap between there and there is just less than the actual gap of the chassis rail itself, less this inner piece here. But on the Mark IIs, because they've got a wider leaf spring, these come down and flare out and come down. And all the ones I can see for sale are all Mark II ones, as far as I can tell. This is definitely flat. You can see on the other side. See that on the camera? Yeah, it comes down flat. So I think it's going to be a case of chopping it out and making our own. It's a bit of a shame that I didn't discover this sooner, because this new bit I did earlier, I'm going to be chopping out from there up really, so it is what it is. And to get to it, I'm going to have to chop out some good metal. So we're looking chopping out up around here somewhere, and across here and down around there. Chop that out and put it to one side and come back and put it back in later, just so we can get to everything. Otherwise I'm trying to do everything upside down, and I don't like working upside down. Right, so I've attacked that with a wire brush, so we can clean up all the spot welds. So you can see obviously where it's spot welded now, and along here I need to clean this off ready for the floor to go under it. So the next job is cut up along there, around there, and back down. I think that'll be far enough up. Yes, around there should be far enough up to be able to work to get to the chassis rail. So between the slitting disc and the Dremel, we've got that cut out. So it's a case of hitting the spot welds now and removing that piece carefully as best we can. Right, spot weld is drilled out, and that piece now it's a separate piece. So again, we'll keep that by safe, probably give that a good clean up, and now we can see what we're up against in here, which is quite nasty. Looks quite an interesting setup here. So we got, looks like a strengthening piece comes through here all the way down, all the way down to here. Then you've got a separate U section of the chassis itself, and then you've got all this malarkey on it. Now before I take this apart, I'm thinking I need to support things around this department here, so I'm going to run a bit of steel down from here down to my jig down there, so that'll tie this, all this section together and stop it moving up and down and left and right, whatever, and tie it into the chassis rail here as well, stop that moving around once I start cutting that back out again. Right, so hopefully you can see what I meant by reinforcing this like before I start chopping things out. So just put a box section down through onto the chassis, what do you call it, jig. So this now will hold this all in place, up and down and left and right, and then just tack this onto the chassis back there, so when I do start cutting out, that will stay where it should be. Now my plan is now cut that out completely, repair it, rebuild it, whatever we're going to do to it, then put it back in again. Right, just about to pull the bolt out of my little jig section. If it stays in place, happy days. I'm going to have a look on this. There some out. There we go, that's it better. You can see what's going on. So, and in there, look at that. Happy days. So that's good news. Our bolts come out of there easily. Means the chassis hasn't moved around at all. This is where putting the effort in to build this jig is really going to pay off, because when I cut this section out now and work on it and put it back, it can only go back in one place, or at least the mounting points for the front leaf spring hanger will only be in one place, and that's the bit that matters. Right, time for the fun bit. I cut it across here, and then we're back to fresh metal and just past this side of my weld on the new piece I put in, and cut it down through there somewhere, because that's, although it looks ropey, is quite solid there, so we can work away from back from there, and hopefully we can come up with a plan to rebuild it. Well, that's good, that hasn't moved horrendously. So let's see if we can get to the other bit now. Some out. Right, let's see what that leaves us. So over here now you can see the different levels. So what I'll try and do there, get the lamp on it, get in there with the Dremel, cut that back. There's a bit of rot there to be fixed. Cut that back into there, so we can have a bit of an overlap with the those bits, and then let's see what we can do about rebuilding that section there. With it on the bench, we've got a better idea of what we're playing at, and it's going to be easier to work with. So the first thing I think I need to do is work out how to take it apart, and then use what I've got. You see now, because it's easier to see now what I mean about the shape of it. So the Mark II, this bumps out here and here. Let's see if I can find a picture to put up and show what I mean. Which means that you can put in a wider leaf spring, which the Mark II has got. Now some might suggest at this point, well, put a Mark II one in might not be a bad idea, and I might yet do that, because that opens the option to using Mark II springs, which a lot have used on Mark Is, so might yet come to that. But I'm going to have a play, see what I can do with it first, and take it from there. One of the first things we need to do is work out what size metals or thickness of metal we need, and unfortunately the battery's gone on my calipers, so it's going to be a case of use them, then measure them. So let's tighten that up onto there first and see what we got. Glasses. Right, we have got for that, that can't be right, 1 millimeter. Let's try another piece. Let's try a thicker piece. It's probably just rotted down there. There's a lip on that. Alright, let's try that again. There's not much movement, but 1.2, maybe 1.5. Let's see what I've got. Right, just clamped these round some steel I got over there, but it's a big sheet of it. I can't bother to pull it out right now. But that's come up at that thickness. So let's see what we got. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so that's what you want to be using to make that section out of. That's a bit thicker again. Let's give that a clean up. So what we got, that is about bang on 2mm. So let's see what I got. I'm pretty sure I got some 2mm somewhere. Yeah, perfect. Give it a shot. So that's perfect for that stuff. It's funny you hold it like this. It doesn't seem like it's going to be thick enough, but hey ho. It's the same gauge anyway, so that's about 2mm. And what other bits do we have? That there, which looks about the same thickness as that. So we're looking at approximately 1.5 for that and 2mm for that, which is fine. I have that, and that's about 1.5 as well by the looks of it. What's left of it anyway. Okay, what to do next is the question. How are we going to get that apart without destroying everything? I would like to keep this together, take it apart but keep it together, if that makes sense, so I can see how to build a new one up. Right, the purpose of that is to highlight where all the spot welds are. There's loads of them. So first thing I'm going to try and do is get this piece off. So it's well there to cut out, which I use a Dremel on that I think, and some spot welds to clear out there. Rightio, so just a bit of cardboard as usual. Edge off there so it's nice and straight. Right, so that's the one side of it. We should make a template for the top as well while we're at it. It gets too mangled. think in reality when it comes to building this, I've done that in the wrong place, it's going to be a case of folding this around whatever we build. So I think it's just these pieces here which are most important to get right, and there's a pressing effort in the middle there which we nice to get the shape of. So pressing something along the lines of that sort of shape, and I think I'll just cut this oversize on this side and mirror that. So what we got now is the two, that side and sort of that side, in which we can then mirror to make the other sides, if that makes sense. So we'll keep all of those now and start continuing to pull this apart. Just like that. Now the challenge is going to be getting this lip, so I might have to have a go at making something to, as a hammer form. It's going to have to be something solid, because this, the gauge of metal I'm going to have to be working with. If it's the thinner stuff like that, I could probably get away using MDF or something, but this stuff isn't going to hammer form easily. What I might have to do, make a replica of that in steel and use that. I think that's the next challenge, to do that. Let's get the cardboard cut out of it first. And the good news is this is made in 3 pieces. You've got this piece here which overlaps then a similar piece underneath there and spot welds together there. So I might rethink that idea. And then in a piece then that fits to hold it all together. Right, I've got a couple of bits of steel kicking about. I've got a bit of 10mm stick over here, which I think would be overkill for what we want. We might come back to it. And I've got this, which I think is 6mm, if I remember correctly. I think this is going to be more workable with. So let's draw around that and make a template. A hammer form rather. I wonder if I need to make 2 identical to each other so I can clamp them together. Yes, I think I'm going to have to do that, aren't I? Yes, Dave, you are. Okay. Right, got those 2 cut now to a basic shape. I'll weld these together, just spot them around, then drill through some holes and then grind up the edges so they're all both perfectly match each other, and then this will match the shape of that, wherever it's got to go. Yeah. Get it in the end like that. So we'll grind that up so it snugs in there nicely and they'll both be the same. Right, got these welded together. Now my intention was to drill a hole first, but that hole there is gonna be, needs to be in the right place once these are the shape. So what I think I'll do, I'll drill drill a line of holes through here first to be effectively spot weld holes, bolt those together. I could drill a small hole through that one to put a bolt through there, and then leave this one until later. And when I got it fitted snugly in there, I can then use this drill bit, which is exactly the right size, all the way through. You can see it fits nicely into there, all the way through, and use it to get it spot on the centre of that needs to be, because that's important. And then I can make those discs up after we find a washer to suit to weld in place. So that's the plan. Drill these, just drill some 6mm holes in these first and through there, and then use that to bolt it together. Right, so got this bolted through and all ground up so that they both flush. So undo this now and see what we got. And these should now just fall apart. Just like that. Lovely. Right, so that will clamp now over that metal. So the next job now is to cut out a test piece and see how we go. Okay, so on a quick modification of me previous template, so I can now get an idea of the size of piece I need to cut out. So that will fit into there quite nicely around there and go around and be one of my pieces, and the other side then will effectively just do the opposite and fits in like that. So drawn around that. Now I'm going to cut this out using a jigsaw and have a go at clamping it in hammer form and see what happens. Now it seems hard to imagine that that's going to be strong enough because it looks too thin, but it's the same gauge. Right, so what we need to do next is determine where to put this, which is going to be about there somewhere, and drill through a couple of holes to get us started, and then clamp the other one through. Like so, and then start beating it with a hammer. Right, so I'll bolt this through with the other one and then drill the other holes through. Right, before we get too far, before I forget, we clean this face up, clean both faces up so it's nice and clean, because I'm not going to get into the corners afterwards. These on. That's better. Right, let's drill the others out. You can probably hear the Welsh weathers being Welsh. Surprised now that comes through on the video. Right, yeah, that's all nicely clamped together. Another one of my favourite tools in the garage. Right, so we're going to go in with this side first. So this way, not that it makes a difference, but just so we keep a track on what's going on. That has to go around that way eventually, and these come over. Let's see how hard this is going to be. Reasonable gauge of metal, so let's see what we got. One thing I learned when I did the those seat braces before is do the corners first and then work back to them. And these are not such tight corners, so hopefully these won't be too bad now.
Bottom left bolt is coming undone.
Ah, I spotted. Yeah, surprising how loose it will come.
And you'd come a bit loose if we start getting bashed by hammer, Dave.
Maybe that's what happened. You see, I'm using a cheap, nasty hammer for this. I don't want to mess up the panel beaters. They're not particularly expensive ones, but at the same time I don't want to destroy them. A little bit more if we can. Yep, that looks kind of like that. That's not bad. Like that bit will get in the right plane now. Oh, I just noticed it's got a little cut off there. I'll do that after it. So we want to make sure we bend that in the right place. God. A big hammer. Okay, got a proper hammer on the job now. Too much. Oh, it's an angle, isn't it? I've got 90 degrees, it's not 90 degrees. This is going to be fun to get back straight. That's more like it. That. Get that on there, and we're laughing. Right, that's one side in the right department. Next challenge, put a bevel in that. So drill the hole out to a suitable size with me step drill. And it's got a little bit of a bevel on it, so I have it using my little hydraulic tool, which is actually a cutter. I can use it to make a dent, so I turn it all inside out. So if I pump on that, turn it on first, that pulls that centre piece down there, which will pull this through. So let's have a go. See, I think that's about the size you want. This is sort of a challenge to centre it all up. Using it back to front to the way it was designed to be used as well. Right, I'm going to need something to push on that. Like so. There we go, let's give that a whirl. Ah, I've lost my bother. Right, centre that up again. Drop that in. Stick that over there. Right, hopefully this is going to go well. Yeah, that'll do us. Ah, nice. Happy days. Right, so I've made up the other side. So that now fits in nicely into that one. Make up. Load this. Who's left-handed? I'm not a left-handed person. There we go. So that makes up that section, which will fit over the chassis like so. So the next piece to do is this inner bit here. Now it occurred to me that when I was making this fold on this one needs to be material thickness this way, if that makes sense. So we're tucking behind there, and these both, you can see, both line up nicely on the front there now. So to get that, all I did was simply grind off the thickness of material off of that. So when I use this now, I use this one to bend that side, and this one, as you'll see if I clip them together, there's a hair thickness difference there, 2mm thickness to suit the thickness of the material. And that's, I'm quite pleased with how they've turned out. So I'm going to give that one a coat of paint now. Bit of Halford's Weld Through Primer, because we know how good that is now. And make a start on making this bit up. Right, so what I'm thinking here now is using my part of the jig to build this. What I think I might do is build another hammer form, something which is exactly the right width there, which is just a shade over 2.5 inches, and then bang that piece around that. Then we know it's going to be right for the spring hanger to go into it, because I took the measurements for this from the original bushings off the springs I took off, which obviously were correct. What I'm thinking is a bit of box section like this, or box, angle rather, and use this to chop this up to make up a frame that would effectively sit inside of that. If it wasn't all rotten out and horrible, but make sure the measurements are suitable to my jig, and then use that then to form that inner section around. Right, that's 2 pieces cut at 3.5 inches that way. Now what I was thinking next was basically put them together like that, and so that the gap between them is exactly that. I'll clamp that up and I'll show you what I mean. I'm struggling to do this with one hand. This is the idea. So this now is a perfect fit along there, like so, and this is the exact width need to be in between those. So what I'm going to do now is scribe down there, cut that off, and weld those two together. That'll be the first part of my form. Right, so this is the idea. I've got to weld in there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run a slitting disc up in there and up the other side as well, so we get a nice penetrating weld into the middle of those, in between them now. That now is exactly the same width as that. That's a nice tight fit onto there. So if we hammer form some metal around that, we know it's going to be a perfect size for that to clamp into, which is what we want. But we're not quite finished there with it, because it now has to suit that bit there as well. So I'll make another piece that'll then run up, so you can work that bit to it as well. Obviously I've made that sound, but you'll see what I mean when I do it. Righty-ho, there we have the finished article. So now it'll just be simply a case of wrapping a bit of metal around this and folding over the tabs, which will then replicate what this bit will look like. So this would effectively be sitting inside there, if that makes sense, once I wrap the metal around it, and that gives me a known size for definite, that I know that the part will be the right size. And I can also use it when I come to building everything up with these pieces included, that it'll be all spot on. Of course, the next thing we need to do is make a cardboard template to copy the shape of this, and so it'll wrap around this. So have a look to see how I'm going to do this now. Get this all on camera. Can't really see what I'm recording. Right, so basically you want this to wrap around there. So we'll start off with that first, get our lengths. And our maximum height for this is about 2.5, if I remember rightly. Yeah, 2.5, so that all has to be 2.5 tall. That's the straight edge along the bottom there. First, what we have to remember is to include our fold over tangs, and they're about 1/2 inch. So we'll do that first. 1/2 inch for our tangs. And then 2.5 off of that, which is there. I'll square up from that. Now the next thing is this. It's got a bit of a shape around there which sort of follows that, so we could use a pattern to get that shape. Okay, snip that out. Let's see what we got. That would be the idea, and then those would fold over like so, and like so, and cut those across here. This. And voila, we have our internal bit that goes in there, sort of. And that'll be quite easy now to form around that and keep everything exactly as I want it. Happy days. Let's make a metal one. That's basically our metal cut out of that. So the idea now is basically wrap it around this. You can just simply squeeze that into there like so. That might just do us a treat. Worth a try. What's the worst that can happen? Maybe clamp that under there first. Stop that moving around too much. A little bit of an experiment. Let's give it a go. It's not too bad. Let's squish it along that way as well and tap these down. Let's see what we got. Well, that's kind of what I was after. Yeah, seem to have ended up with a thinner flange there, which doesn't really matter. That might just be a case of how I put it into the under the hammer form, but yeah, that's the idea. Happy days. And there we basically have a spring hanger. So this will fit now quite snugly into there, ready to mount the leaf spring onto. I've backed together a jig for building this together. So after taking some careful measurements of the existing chassis bits, I've come up with this jig. Basically it goes like this. And because both sides are identical to each other, pretty much, so all the holes are anyway, because the way I drill holes through the these jig pieces themselves, it'll go where it needs to go. Now on this chassis, you can see on the side where I've drawn some lines on it, so that's showing where this rail runs down there and where this one intersects. They intersect there, and so I've taken measurements from inside there. Measurements were all over the place until I was silly of taking measurements, and that's when I come up with this jig. So you'll see that bit sticks up, but that doesn't matter because the chassis will be coming down onto that anyway. And this just means I can replicate when I come to make the other one for the other side, which I almost certainly will need one. I can bang it out a lot faster. Now I know what I'm doing. And I've also worked out where my hole is, which is there, from this suspension mount. So I've just drilled, again, a hole in these, which is that one there. Perfectly match both of these, so happy days. So what it means now is this piece here, which we made earlier, just simply slots into there, like so. Clamp it in, tack it in, and away to go. And then clamp that in and spot it weld it into place. Then drill through for the clamp gone. Then just drill through for the chassis. I'm losing the plot here. And just put those like that. And then if I get, so this is the piece from the jig, which fits in nice and snugly just there, and just about there somewhere is where our hole will be. So that's perfect. That is, there's a little bit of waggle room, so when that clamps up together with a bolt, fab, nice and tight. So all I've got to make next is the big washers, which will go around there as well, just to give that extra bit of strength. Yeah, that's going to be an easy job. So yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll wrap this video up for this point. So it should just showing how I made this section here, and we'll move on to making the chassis leg next. Otherwise these videos are just going to be enormous, so we do one bit at a time and work our through in separate parts. Just grab the camera, you can see now how that fits into there. I've adjusted my template which I made because I didn't realise how far up this would come, so I've adjusted my template I've made so that'll fit in. The next one I make will be snug. I'll just grind that one down to suit, it'd be nicer. But there we go, that's that bit pretty much. Watch out for the next one.